Welcome to the Political Checkmate, and today I'm going to respond to Kyle Kulinski's video called Jordan Peterson Rips Direct Democracy. Pandering to the mob, here we go.
Majority should get what they want. Direct democracy on its own. Why is that problematic? Well, it's problematic because if you are in 1963 in Mississippi and you have a direct vote on whether or not black people should be considered equal and they should be considered American citizens, the racists would win that vote handily. By the same token, if you vote directly on should women have the right to vote, you don't have to go back that far for the people who say no to win that vote handily. So direct democracy does have the potential problem of the tyranny of the majority oppressing the rights of the minority. So that is a real problem with direct democracy, and I don't want to gloss over that. However, the solution to that problem is actually very simple and straightforward. The solution is very clearly enumerated constitutional rights. So in other words, what you say is, look, here are your rights. These are off the table. You can't take them away. Doesn't matter if 53% of the public says, I don't want that thing. No, like free speech. You don't want people say unpopular things. Maybe 53% of people might want to lock up somebody who makes a claim that offends our sensibilities, but you have a right to free speech so that even if the majority decides it, you shouldn't be locked up for it. Okay? But if you have a constitution, you could take all the issues that should be off the table and genuinely put them off the table so that all you have left to vote on are the issues where you should have a direct say.
I am glad Kyle Kulinski acknowledges the problems with democracy, but the Constitution will not solve that problem because you have scholars questioning what it means or find ways to change those rules, such as arguing that it could cost more than it benefits or argue its value is outdated. I would recommend Murray Rothbard's book Anatomy of the State, where he shows how the government transcends its limits.
So let's go through some of what he says. He says the system is set up to follow the public in an intelligent way. I totally disagree. Now, I don't know if he's referring to Canada or if he's referring to the U.S., because he says parliamentary at one point in there, which would lead me to believe he means Canada. But certainly in the U.S., I don't know as much about Canada, but certainly in the U.S., the system is not set up to follow the public in an intelligent way. In fact, we had, a study from Princeton that came out maybe a decade ago now, which found that there's no correlation whatsoever between what the people want and the laws we end up getting. There's a direct correlation, though, between what corporations and the wealthy want and the policies we end up getting. So the system is not set up to follow the public in an intelligent way. The system is set up in modern-day America to serve the donor class, to serve the ruling class, to have corporate rule in the country or oligarchy in the country. That's how the system is functionally set up. That's the effective result of the system that we've set up.
So Kyle Kulinski is citing the Jones and Page study. Well, there are 3 studies responding to that study and showing some problems with that study, such as out of the 1,779 bills in their dataset, only 1,594 the rich and the middle class agree on. And if you look at the 185 bills that the rich and the middle class disagree on, the rich got 53% and the middle class got 47%. So it is more of an imperfect democracy than an oligarchy that Kyle is suggesting.
Then he goes off the deep end and says, well, idiot opinion polls are replacing that. I don't know why a guy who is so insistent on the sovereignty of the individual and an individual person is really complex and interesting and thoughtful. These are things I've heard him say 1,000 times over. If you're a psychologist and you're listening to somebody, they're fascinating, so fascinating you can't stand it. Why doesn't he have that same respect for the collective? If the collective is just a gathering together of a giant group of individuals and you agree that the individuals are fascinating and complex and thoughtful and nuanced, then why with the collective do you just hand wave it away and say,
well, the difference between the individual and the collective is that there is no collective mind, but really an individual opinion. You could find something that people would agree on, such as a school, but that's really where it ends, because many people would argue what should the school teach, such as a religion, or racism, or sex ed versus abstinence only, and physical education requirements, or where should the money be allocated, such as a new baseball field or a new library. I would also point out that when people are voting for a certain policy, they will not get what they want and still be forced to pay for the program and follow the new rule. and that is the difference between the individual and the collective.
These are 88 opinion polls that came to this conclusion. No, I think opinion polls are actually really important. Now, you can bias it by wording things a certain way, but that doesn't mean you get to hand wave away the entire enterprise when a lot of the polls that are done are not too biased and they're very straightforward and people have clear thoughts on it. I think that matters. I think that means something.
Well, the problems with the polls on the average citizen is that they have limited amounts of knowledge on politics. For example, in the book Against Democracy, 73% of Americans did not understand what the Cold War is about, and 40% of Americans did not know who the U.S. fought in World War II, and many people did not know about Al Gore's position in the 2000 election. After all, many people don't work on politics, and they have lives to do that they enjoy, so it is costly to get informed on issues, and also just because people believe on certain things does not mean they are correct.
He says it's effectively pandering to the mob to have direct democracy or, quote, rule by impulse. I would argue the exact opposite is true. You know what rule by impulse is? Rule by impulse is having politicians make our decisions when these politicians are in the pocket of Chevron and ExxonMobil and Goldman Sachs and the military-industrial complex, companies like Lockheed Martin and Honeywell and Boeing. That's rule by impulse. You have these, like, adult children who are colossally corrupt, who just do the bidding of their donors, and they're doing it, whether consciously or subconsciously, because they want to get rewarded. They want to win their next campaign, so they want to fill those campaign coffers, or when they leave Washington, they want to get a lobbyist gig for $1 million a year to sit on their ass all day. So that's rule by impulse. That's rule by impulse.
A study from the Journal of Law and Economics found that the campaign contributions don't change the politician's opinion. Instead, it is more about donations matching politicians with similar interests. And also, the public would still rule by impulse. If a policy affects them, such as at Cook County, where many people protest against the soda tax.
And then the part where probably the worst claim he makes is like, effectively, look, you got to rely on the experts and you got to rely on the intellectuals. Oh, really? How has that worked out for us so far to rely on the experts and the intellectuals? It was the experts and the intellectuals who got us into an illegal war, an offensive and illegal war that killed minimum 200,000 innocent civilians in Iraq. It was the experts and the intellectuals that brought us torture. It was the experts and the intellectuals that decided so-called free trade deals are wonderful, even though they decimated the American working class and outsourced the jobs for pennies on the dollar. It was a race to the bottom. It was the experts who said, tax cuts for the wealthy are great. Deregulation of the marketplace is great, even though that deregulation led to giant market crashes. It was the intellectuals and the experts who were the problem. They were the problem.
First off, 72% of people supported the Iraq War when it first happened, according to Gallup. In 2003, secondly, free trade deals did not destroy jobs because a Ball State University study debunks that myth and argues that it was 88% caused by productivity growth. And free trade has been good for the economy, according to the CBO, which looked at the economic literature and found that it lowers prices for consumers and increases workers' real wages. And I would also like to point out that NBC and Wall Street Journal poll found that 64% supported free trade, and a study from the National Bureau of Economic Research has found that corporate taxes lead to increased GDP and productivity. Another study from the National Bureau of Economic Research found that deregulations spur investment. If he was referencing the 2008 crisis, this study disproves that the Glass-Steagall could have been prevented the 2008 crisis. Instead, it was caused by the Community Reinvestment Act, according to the study. Finally, I agree with Kyle that experts have problems, and I would recommend Think Like a Freak by the authors of Freakonomics, where they explore this topic of experts' limited amounts of knowledge. This is the end of the video. I would like to thank everyone for watching this video. Please like and subscribe and donate to my Patreon, where I could make more videos, and thank you all.